You're a photon, a tiny bundle of energy, sprinting at a breakneck speed of 299,792,458 meters per second. You've just bounced off a spectacular sunset, slipped through a window, and bam, you're captured by a device no bigger than a coffee cup. You've just been turned into a memory, a pixel, a story. That device? A camera. But what exactly is a camera? And how does it turn the relentless dance of light into a still image we can hold, share, and occasionally accidentally delete? Stick around, because by the end of this ride, you'll not only know the answer, you'll be able to explain it to your pet, provided your pet wears glasses. Welcome to What Is, the channel where we unpack the everyday mysteries that shape our world, one witty bite at a time. I'm here to guide you through the wonder, history, and future of the humble camera. Grab your popcorn or your smartphone, because we're about to dive into the nuts, bolts, and photons that make photography possible. How it works. At its core, a camera is a light trap. Think of it as a private club for photons. They enter through a tiny opening, get sorted, and are forced to leave a lasting impression on a special surface. Let's break the process down, step by playful step. 1. The lens, the camera's eye. The first thing a photon meets is the lens, a curved piece of glass or plastic that bends, refracts, the incoming light. This bending is what focuses the scattered rays into a coherent image. Imagine trying to read a book in a dark room with a flashlight. The lens is that flashlight, but in reverse, gathering scattered light and pointing it inward. Modern lenses are often made of multiple elements, each designed to correct imperfections, like a team of opticians fine-tuning a pair of glasses. Some lenses are prime, meaning they have a fixed focal length. Others are zoom, which lets you play with magnification like a magic wand. 2. Aperture, the camera's pupil. Once the light passes through the lens, it meets the aperture, an adjustable opening that works just like the pupil of your eye. Open it wide, a large aperture, say f1.8, and you let in a flood of light. Great for low light selfies, but risky if you want everything in focus. Close it down, a small aperture, say f16, and you restrict the light, giving you a deep depth of field where both the foreground and background stay sharp. If the camera were a restaurant, the aperture would be the size of the front door. A wide door lets a crowd rush in, fast shutter, bright image, while a narrow door lets only a trickle, slow shutter, darker image. It's all about balancing the appetite for light with the desired menu of sharpness. 3. Shutter, the camera's eyelid. Now the light is ready to hit the sensor or film, but we can't let it linger forever. We need a precise moment of exposure. That's the job of the shutter, a mechanical or electronic curtain that opens for a fraction of a second, sometimes as fast as 1/8,000th of a second, sometimes as slow as several seconds. A fast shutter freezes a hummingbird's wing in mid-buzz. A slow shutter turns a waterfall into silky silk. The shutter is the camera's eyelid, blinking just long enough to record a story, then closing to say, that's a wrap. 4. Sensor or film, the canvas. Finally, the light lands on our canvas. In the analog world, that canvas is a sheet of film coated with light-sensitive chemicals. When photons strike the silver halide crystals, they create a latent image, essentially a hidden picture waiting to be revealed in a darkroom. In the digital realm, the canvas is a sensor made of millions of tiny photodiodes, each acting like a pixel factory. When a photon hits a photodiode, it frees an electron, which is then measured as an electrical charge. The stronger the light, the higher the charge, which our camera's brain converts into a numeric value. 0 for black, 255 for white, and a rainbow of colors in between. And there you have it. Lens to aperture to shutter to sensor or film. Each component is a character in a tiny play, and when they all sync, a photograph is born. If you're enjoying this light-filled journey, give this video a like. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because there's more visual magic just around the corner. Next in our visual journey, let's look at Origins and development. Now that we know how it works, let's travel back in time to see where it all began. Spoiler alert, the first cameras weren't exactly pocket size. Camera obscura, the granddaddy. Long before anyone thought of capturing an image, scholars in ancient China and later in Renaissance Europe played with a phenomenon called the camera obscura, Latin for dark chamber. If you poked a tiny hole in a wall, light from outside would project an inverted image onto the opposite surface. It was like a natural projector, and artists used it as a drawing aid. Imagine trying to sketch a landscape while everything is upside down. Now that's a party trick. The first photographic steps jump to 1826, when French inventor Joseph Nicephore Niepce captured the first permanent photograph, view from the window at Le Gras. His technique, heliography, required an 8-hour exposure, plenty of time for the sun to move across the sky and for the photographer to grow a beard. A few years later, Louis Daguerre refined the process, creating the daguerreotype, a shiny, one-off silver plate that wowed audiences worldwide. Suddenly portraits became affordable, and people began to say cheese, though they had to hold still for minutes, so the smile was more of a grimace. Film rolls onto the scene. In 1888, George Eastman rolled out the first flexible photographic film, trademarked as Kodak. His slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest," was a revolutionary nod to simplicity. Suddenly, you didn't need a darkroom in your basement. You could just mail your roll to the factory and get prints back. The world became more snap-happy, and family albums sprouted like mushrooms after rain. The 20th Century Revolution. The mid-1900s gave us the 35mm SLR, single-lens reflex camera, a design that let photographers see exactly what the lens saw through a mirrored viewfinder. This spawned iconic cameras like the Leica, the Canon AE1, and the Nikon F. Suddenly, photojournalism exploded, wars were documented, and the world got a visual diary. Then came the instant camera, popularized by Polaroid in 1948. The magic of watching a picture develop right before your eyes felt like a mini magic show. Kids and adults would wave the photo, blow on it, and pray it wouldn't turn out a murky mess. By the late 20th century, the digital wave crashed onto photography, forever changing how we capture, store, and share moments. Let's unpack the shift from film to bits. From silver halide to silicon. In a film camera, the chemistry is the hero. In a digital camera, silicon takes the stage. The sensor, a CCD, charge-coupled device, or CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor, converts photons into electrons, then into digital data. This means no more waiting for film to be developed, no more darkrooms, and no more "oops, I forgot to load the film" moments. Resolution, the pixel puzzle. When people talk about megapixels, they're really talking about the number of tiny picture elements, pixels, crowded onto the sensor. More megapixels generally mean sharper prints, or the ability to crop without losing detail. But beware the marketing hype. A 100 megapixel phone doesn't automatically outperform a 12 megapixel DSLR if the lens and sensor quality aren't up to par. It's like having a million tiny brushes. If the paint is cheap, the masterpiece will still look like a toddler's doodle. Dynamic range and ISO. The light balancing act, digital sensors introduced adjustable ISO, a measure of the sensor's sensitivity to light. Crank up the ISO, say to 6400, and you can shoot in near darkness, but you'll also introduce noise, those pesky speckles that make your night photos look like static on an old TV. Modern cameras have gotten better at noise reduction, thanks to improved sensor architecture and clever algorithms. Dynamic range, the ability to capture detail in both shadows and highlights, has also widened. High-end DSLRs and mirrorless cameras now offer 14-stop dynamic range, letting you recover details from a sunset that would have been lost on film. Storage and sharing, the instant era. Remember carrying rolls of film and a bulky wallet of prints? Now a tiny SD card can hold thousands of high-resolution images. You can review, delete, and reshoot in seconds. And with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, photos can leap from camera to phone to social media faster than you can say hashtag. The digital differences in a nutshell. No chemical processing, instant feedback, no waiting. Flexibility, shooting in raw, unprocessed data gives you more editing latitude than a scanned negative. Cost per shot, essentially zero after the initial camera purchase, unlike film, which costs money each click. Environmental impact, fewer chemicals, less physical waste, but electronic waste is a growing concern. Future. Now let's peer into the crystal ball. What does the future hold for cameras? Spoiler, they're about to get a lot smarter, smaller, and maybe a little spooky. Computational photography, the software revolution. Modern smartphones already blend multiple shots, HDR, high dynamic range, and portrait mode using algorithms. This computational approach uses software to simulate what used to require bulky lenses. Expect this trend to explode. Imagine a tiny lens that can capture a 3D map of a scene, or a camera that can remove unwanted tourists from your vacation photos with a single tap. AI-enhanced imaging. Artificial intelligence is teaching cameras to understand content. They can recognize faces, track eyes, and even predict the perfect moment to press the shutter, akin to a photographer's intuition, but powered by neural networks. In the near future, your camera might say, "Smile, the lighting is perfect," or "Hold on, a bird's about to fly into frame." Lens-less and photon-counting cameras. Traditional lenses could become a thing of the past. Researchers are experimenting with flat lenses that bend light using nanostructures, promising ultra-thin optics. Meanwhile, quantum-entangled cameras could one day capture images with impossibly low light, potentially revolutionizing medical imaging and night vision. Biometric and embedded cameras. From eye tracking in AR headsets to under-display smartphone cameras, the boundaries between camera and device are blurring. Soon, every gadget you own might double as a camera, capturing your world from countless angles. Sustainability and ethics. As the industry pushes forward, there's a growing focus on eco-friendly manufacturing, recyclable materials, and reducing electronic waste. The future isn't just about smarter pictures, it's about taking them responsibly. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of cameras, don't forget to like, comment with your favorite camera memory, and share this video with fellow shutterbugs. Subscribe to What Is for more bite-sized explorations of the tech that shapes our lives. And stay curious, because the next frame is always waiting. Bonus fact. Here's a little nugget you won't find elsewhere. The longest photographic exposure ever achieved was a staggering 8 years and 1 month, captured by photographer Michael Wesley using a custom-made pinhole camera to record the gradual shift of stars across the sky, turning the heavens into a cosmic time-lapse. Now that's patience. See you next time. What do your favorite pair of jeans, a luxurious Persian rug, and a humble cotton t-shirt have in common? They all owe their existence to one incredible, age-old machine, the loom. If you've ever marveled at the intricate patterns on a medieval tapestry, or felt the soft embrace of a freshly woven blanket, you've felt the work of a loom. But what exactly is a loom? And how did a wooden frame with some strings change the world so dramatically that it helped spark the Industrial Revolution? Grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's travel back in time. Plus a few jokes, because the story of the loom is part history, part engineering, and part how many weavers does it take to change a light bulb? The simple act of weaving. Long before anyone coined the term loom, humans were already weaving. Think of the earliest hunters sitting around a fire, twisting plant fibers together to make cords, nets, and baskets. That basic over-under technique, taking one strand and passing it over, then under the next, is the DNA of every fabric you've ever worn. When our ancestors realized they could create a more stable structure by crossing two sets of threads at right angles, they invented the warp and the weft. The warp is the tight, lengthwise threads that stay stretched on the loom. The weft is the thread that zigzags back and forth, interlacing with the warp. It sounds simple, but that simple crossing is what turned a tangled mess of fibers into cloth, sails, and even the first smart textiles, if you consider a loincloth smart. By about 5,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians were using a basic loom, a couple of wooden beams, some heddles, the little devices that separate the warp threads, and a shuttle to carry the weft. These early looms were handheld or ground-based, and the process was painstakingly slow. Now picture a busy ancient market, a weaver hunched over a loom, eyes narrowed, hands moving faster than a caffeinated squirrel. Every few seconds they'd have to stop, pull the weft, beat it into place, and then start again. It was a rhythm, a meditation, and a full-body workout all rolled into one. But as societies grew, the demand for cloth exploded. Farmers needed more sails for ships, armies needed more banners, everyday folks wanted more than one tunic, and that demand set the stage for the loom's big upgrade. Defining the loom. So, what exactly is a loom? In its most basic form, a loom is any device that holds a set of warp threads under tension and provides a way to interlace the weft thread. Traditional looms consist of a frame, a warp beam, the roll that holds the lengthwise threads, a cloth beam where the finished fabric rolls up, heddles, and a shuttle. The heddles, often made of string, wire, or metal, lift or lower the warp threads in a precise order, creating an open shed that the shuttle can pass through. The shuttle, usually a small boat-shaped piece of wood or metal, carries the weft thread across the shed in one smooth motion. When the shuttle returns, the weaver beats the weft tight against the previous row with a reed or beater, compressing the fabric. Every time the shuttle goes back and forth, a new line of fabric is added. It's a beautifully simple cycle. Lift, pass, beat, repeat. But the true power of the loom isn't just in its simplicity. It's in the way it can be mechanized, scaled, and, eventually, turned into a machine that could outproduce 100 skilled hands. Hey, if you're enjoying this journey through the world of weaving, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the What Is channel. We've got plenty more stories where this came from, each one exploring the fascinating origins of the things we use every day. Let's get back to the story of the loom. The first mechanical leaps. The earliest mechanical enhancements were modest but revolutionary. The warp-weighted loom, used by the Greeks and Romans, suspended heavy stones or clay weights from the warp threads. These weights kept the warp taut, allowing the weaver to create a wider fabric without the whole thing collapsing. Fast forward to medieval Europe, and you see the draw loom. The draw loom added a mechanism that could lift groups of warp threads automatically, creating complex patterns like damasks and brocades. Picture a medieval guild hall, dozens of draw looms clicking away, each one staffed by a master weaver who could literally program patterns by pulling a series of cords. The complexity was astonishing. Some fabrics had hundreds of heddles, each controlled by a separate cord. It was the textile industry's first software. Each pattern was a new program run on the same hardware. Legend has it that an apprentice once asked his master, "How do you remember which cord to pull?" The master replied, "Young man, I've been weaving for 40 years. My fingers know the pattern better than my brain does." And that's the secret of early weavers. Muscle memory was the original AI. But even with these clever devices, the process remained labor-intensive. A skilled weaver could produce perhaps a yard of fabric a day, far below the burgeoning demand of an expanding world. The Industrial Revolution enters the loom. Enter the 18th century industrial boom, and everything changed. The first major breakthrough was John Kay's flying shuttle, patent 1733. Kay's invention used a mechanical boat that could be thrown across the warp at high speed, eliminating the need for the weaver to reach across the fabric. Think of it as the original hands-free device. Imagine a weaver sipping tea while the shuttle darts back and forth. Well, not sipping tea, but you get the idea. The flying shuttle boosted productivity by roughly 25% and allowed a single weaver to produce wider cloth. But the real big gun of the textile revolution was the power loom. In 1785, Edmund Cartwright patented the first practical power loom. It used water and later steam to drive the mechanisms that lifted the heddles, moved the shuttle, and beat the weft. The power loom could turn out many yards of fabric per hour, far outpacing any hand loom. Here's a fun fact. When the first power looms were installed in factories, some traditional weavers reportedly stood outside, watching the machines with a mix of awe and suspicion. One old weaver is said to have muttered, "Those machines will never replace the feel of real cloth." He was half right. They didn't replace the feel, but they certainly replaced the job. The power loom sparked a cascade of social changes. Factories sprang up across England, then Europe, then America. Entire villages that once thrummed with the rhythmic clack of hand looms became mill towns, where the clang of iron and the hiss of steam became the new soundtrack. The textile industry became the engine of the Industrial Revolution, fueling everything from railway construction to the rise of global trade. The human cost and the Luddite rebellion. Of course, progress is rarely a smooth ride. As power looms took over, handloom weavers saw their livelihoods vanishing. Wages plummeted, and many families who had depended on weaving for generations found themselves in poverty. Enter the Luddites, not the sci-fi bots, but a group of English textile workers who, in the early 1800s, smashed the new machines in a desperate bid to protect their jobs. They named themselves after Ned Ludd, a folklore figure who supposedly destroyed a knitting frame as a child. The movement turned violent at times, factories were burned, and troops were sent in. It's a poignant reminder that every technological revolution has a human side. Fast forward a few decades, and the world adapted. New jobs emerged: machine operators, maintenance technicians, textile designers, and later, marketing and sales. The loom had become a symbol of both progress and displacement, a story that echoes across every wave of automation we see today. But the loom's influence kept expanding. From steam to silicon. By the late 19th century, the loom had gone electric. Electric motors replaced water wheels, making factories more flexible in location. The 20th century brought the shuttle-less loom, also known as the projectile loom, or rapier loom. Instead of a wooden boat shuttling back and forth, these machines use small projectiles or gripping arms to carry the weft thread across the warp at astonishing speeds. Modern high-speed looms can produce up to 2,000 meters of fabric per hour, an amount that would have taken a hand weaver centuries to match. And today, the latest generation of looms is fully computer-controlled. Designers can upload digital patterns directly to the loom, which automatically selects the correct heddle lifts, adjusts tension, and weaves the fabric to exact specifications. The digital loom is essentially a 3D printer for textiles, capable of creating complex patterns, hybrid materials, and even functional fabrics embedded with sensors. Imagine a jacket that can monitor your heart rate, or a curtain that can change color with the flick of a switch. That's not science fiction, it's the modern loom at work. The loom's legacy in everyday life. So why should you care about the loom when you're scrolling through your phone or picking out a new outfit? Because the loom is the invisible thread linking ancient craftsmanship to the fabrics we rely on today. The denim in your jeans, woven on a loom; the cotton in your t-shirt, woven on a loom; the satin of your favorite pillowcase, woven on a loom. The technology that started with a couple of wooden beams and some string has morphed into a multi-billion-dollar global industry that touches every aspect of human life, from fashion to aerospace, medicine to sports. And the loom's story doesn't end. Researchers are now exploring biolooms that can weave living cells into tissue scaffolds, smart textiles that can store energy, and even recyclable looms that turn old garments back into new threads. The loom is still evolving, still weaving the future. Let's quickly tie it all together. A loom is a device that holds warp threads under tension and interlaces weft threads to create fabric. From ancient hand loom roots to the medieval draw loom, the loom steadily grew more sophisticated. The flying shuttle, power loom, and later the electric and shuttle-less looms transformed textile production. These inventions powered the Industrial Revolution, shifted economies, and even sparked social movements like the Luddites. Today, computer-controlled looms are pushing the boundaries of what fabric can be, function, fashion, and beyond. The next time you pull on a shirt or unfurl a blanket, take a moment to appreciate the centuries-old ingenuity that made it possible. Thanks for watching. If this story sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to What Is and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Drop a comment below. What other everyday marvels would you like us to unwrap? Until next time, keep weaving, keep wondering, and keep asking. What is? See you next time. What do your front door, the locker at the gym, and your ex-girlfriend's heart have in common? They're all guarded by a lock. Yep, that little metal thing that we jangle in the morning, that we curse at when we're locked out at 2 a.m., and that we barely think about unless we're trying to pry it open with a butter knife. Spoiler, it never works. Welcome to What Is, the show where we take the ordinary, the everyday, the stuff you've never thought twice about, and we give it the deep dive it deserves. Today we're answering the age-old question, what is a lock? If you've ever fumbled with a key, wondered why your phone asks for a lock screen, or just want to know why the world's most boring piece of metal has its own museum, you're in the right place. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know everything from the ancient Egyptian origins of the lock to why a smart lock might be smarter than you think. Let's start with the basics. A lock is a mechanical or electronic device that secures a door, container, or object by limiting access unless a specific condition, usually a key, a combination, a code, or a biometric, is met. In plain English, it's a bouncer for your stuff. Only the right credential gets you in, and the bouncer doesn't care how charming your smile is. The word lock itself is ancient. It comes from the Old English luk, which traces back to the Proto-Germanic lukno, meaning to close. So from the very beginning, a lock was simply something that closed. Shut, sealed, made tight. It's the kind of definition that makes you realize we've been obsessed with closing things for a very, very long time. Now, if you think the lock you have on your front door is high-tech, let's take a quick trip back in time. The earliest known lock dates back to around 4000 BCE and was found in the ancient Egyptian city of Abydos. Yep, the same civilization that gave us pyramids, hieroglyphs, and a killer fashion sense for linen also gave us the first pin tumbler lock. It was a massive wooden beast, essentially a heavy door bolt with a series of wooden pins that would fall into a notch when the correct wooden key was inserted. Imagine trying to explain that to a modern locksmith. Hey, can you pick this with a toothpick? Actually, that might still work. The Romans, never ones to miss a chance to improve on everything, took the Egyptian design and ran with it. They introduced metal locks, more sophisticated pin mechanisms, and even the concept of a key that could be carried around. They also invented the lock and key combo that we still use today, albeit in a much fancier form. And yes, the Romans loved their locks almost as much as they loved their baths. Well, maybe not that much, but you get the point. Fast forward a couple of millennia, and you've got the modern pin tumbler lock that most of us use every day. It's the classic American lock, sometimes called a Yale lock after the Yale Lock Company that popularized it in the early 20th century. Inside that unassuming brass cylinder are a handful of pins, each held in place by a spring. When the right key, the one with the exact right cut, slides in, it pushes the pins to the shear line, allowing the cylinder to turn and the lock to open. It's a simple, elegant dance of metal and spring, and it's been keeping our homes safe for over a century. And hey, if you're enjoying this locktastic ride, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We've got a lot more What Is goodness coming your way. But wait, there's more. In the world of locks, simple is just a starting point. Let's break down the main types you'll encounter, because knowing your padlock from your deadbolt could save you a lot of heartache and a lot of broken windows. Padlocks are the portable cousins of the fixed lock. They're the ones you see on gym lockers, storage units, and that old trunk in your attic. They come in a few flavors: keyed, where you need a physical key; combination, the classic rotating dial with numbers; and even electronic nowadays. The classic keyed padlock uses the same pin tumbler mechanism as your front door lock, just scaled down and wrapped in a hardened steel shackle. Deadbolts are the heavy hitters for residential security. Unlike a regular spring-loaded latch, a deadbolt is a solid metal bolt that slides into the door frame and can't be easily forced open by kicking or prying. They're the I mean business of locks, and they're usually paired with a regular lock for a double layer of protection. If you're serious about home security, you've got a deadbolt on your front door. And if you don't, maybe it's time to rethink that. Lever locks are a bit of a throwback, popular in Europe and older buildings. Instead of a pin tumbler, they use a set of levers that must be lifted to the correct height by a key. Think of it like a series of little gates, each with a specific height you have to clear to open the door. They're elegant, often beautiful, and a favorite of antique enthusiasts. Combination locks rely on a sequence of numbers or symbols. You've seen them on lockers, safes, and some briefcases. The mechanism is usually a set of rotating discs, or cams, that line up when the correct code is entered, releasing the bolt. They're great because you don't need a physical key, but they do require you to remember a number. And we all know how that goes. Was it 4721 or 4271? Electronic locks are the 21st century kids on the block. They use keypads, card readers, fingerprint scanners, or smartphone Bluetooth to grant access. No physical key to lose, no tiny pins to fiddle with. You just type a code, tap a card, or even just have your phone in your pocket. They're convenient, they can be remotely controlled, and they can log who entered and when. But they also bring a new set of worries, like that time your smart lock decided to glitch and you were locked out of your own house for an hour. Don't worry, we'll get to the future of locks in a bit. Smart locks take electronic locks a step further. They connect to your home Wi-Fi or Z-Wave network, letting you lock or unlock your door from anywhere using an app. Some even integrate with voice assistants, so you can say, "Hey Google, lock the front door," while you're lying in bed. They're the lock of the future, and honestly, sometimes the present. But they also come with the occasional quirky glitch, looking at you, firmware update that bricked half the locks in a neighborhood. Okay, now that we've covered the what and the who's who of locks, let's dig into how they actually work. Because let's be honest, the magic of a lock isn't in the metal, it's in the mechanics. At its core, a lock is a puzzle. The key, or code or biometric, is the solution that aligns the lock's internal parts. In a pin tumbler lock, the key has a series of cuts that correspond to the lengths of the driver pins and the key pins inside the cylinder. When you insert the correct key, each pin is pushed up to a precise point called the shear line, the imaginary line where the cylinder's interior meets its exterior. When all the pins line up at that line, the cylinder can rotate freely. That rotation moves a cam or tailpiece, which then moves the bolt, and voila, door opens. It's kind of like a music lock. Each pin is a note, and the key is the perfect melody that makes all the notes line up in harmony. Get one note wrong, and the whole thing stays stuck. That's why a badly cut key can be a nightmare. You're basically playing a wrong chord on a lock. Now here's where it gets fun. Locks aren't just about keeping people out, they can also be about letting the right people in at the right time. That's where the concept of a master key comes in. In hotels, for example, a master key can open every room, while each guest gets a key that only opens their own door. The magic behind that is a special system of pins that allows multiple keys to work the same lock, a bit like a master code that overrides the usual pin configuration. It's a real-world admin password, and it's been a staple of property management for decades. Alright, before we dive into some of the more quirky aspects of locks, let's take a quick breather. If you're liking this deep dive into the world of latches and levers, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of What Is. Because we've got a ton more fascinating topics coming up. Now let's get a little weird. Did you know there's an entire subculture built around lockpicking? No, it's not just for burglars. Lockpicking is a sport, an art, and a legitimate skill used by locksmiths, security professionals, and even hobbyists who love the puzzle. There are competitions where folks race to open locks in seconds, using nothing but a tension wrench and a pick. It's like a marathon for the mechanically inclined. The sport is called lockpicking, or sport locking, and it's surprisingly accessible. You can buy practice locks, watch tutorials, and even join online communities where members discuss techniques, tools, and the ethics of the hobby. The key, pun intended, is that lockpicking, when done responsibly and legally, is a legitimate way to learn about security and to test the robustness of locks. In many places, owning lockpicking tools isn't illegal as long as you don't use them for illicit purposes. So if you've ever been curious about what makes a lock tick, there's a whole world waiting for you. And speaking of weird, have you ever heard of lock bumping? It's a technique that uses a specially designed bump key to quickly open pin tumbler locks. The idea is that you strike the key with a mallet while applying rotational force, causing the pins to temporarily jump above the shear line, allowing the lock to turn. It's a real security concern, and it's why many modern locks now come with bump-proof features, like sidebar pins or magnetic pins that resist the technique. Now let's talk about the most iconic locks in pop culture. From movies to music, the lock has become a symbol of mystery, protection, and sometimes romance. In The Lord of the Rings, the doors of Durin are a legendary lock that only opens for the right password. Melon, which means friend in Elvish. It's one of the most famous magical doors in fiction, and it even shows up in video games and memes. In the world of music, Lock and Key is a song by the band the Fratellis, and the phrase lock, stock, and two smoking barrels is famously used in the movie Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, a nod to the phrase that means everything, originally from the Old English lock, stock, and barrel, referring to the components of a gun. And of course, there's the classic locked room mystery, a genre of fiction where a crime appears impossible because the room was locked from the inside. It's a staple of detective novels, and it plays on our fascination with locks as symbols of the impenetrable. Now, if you're wondering about the security rating of locks, you're not alone. Locks are rated based on their ability to resist different types of attacks, from simple picking to heavy-duty drilling. The most common rating system in the US is the ANSI, American National Standards Institute grading, which goes from grade 1, the toughest, to grade 3, the most basic. For residential use, a grade 2 deadbolt is usually more than sufficient, while commercial buildings often require grade 1. But here's a fun fact. Even the toughest lock can be defeated if you lose the key, break the cylinder, or forget the code. That's why many security experts recommend a layered approach. A good deadbolt, a quality lock, a smart lock, for convenience, and maybe even a security camera or motion sensor. After all, a lock is only as good as the rest of your security system. Speaking of the future, let's talk about where locks are headed. Smart locks are already making waves, but the next wave is even more exciting. Biometric locks that scan your fingerprint, retinal pattern, or even your face are becoming more affordable and reliable. Imagine walking up to your front door, and it recognizes you instantly, unlocking without you even reaching for a key. Some hotels are already experimenting with mobile key systems where you check in via an app, and your phone becomes your room key, no physical card needed. There's also the rise of shared access systems, where you can grant temporary digital keys to guests, delivery personnel, or even Airbnb guests, all from an app. The key is sent instantly, and you can revoke it with a tap. It's a world where the physical key might become a relic, much like the rotary phone. But with all this convenience comes a new set of risks. Cybersecurity is now a real concern for locks that connect to the internet. A poorly secured smart lock can be hacked, and suddenly your secure door is anything but. That's why manufacturers are investing heavily in encryption, two-factor authentication, and regular firmware updates. It's a race between convenience and security, and it's one we'll be watching closely. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to appreciate the humble lock's role in our daily lives. It's the thing that keeps our homes safe, our bikes from being stolen, and our private moments. Well, private. It's a symbol of trust, a promise that what's behind the lock stays behind the lock until we decide otherwise. And in a world that often feels chaotic, there's something oddly comforting about a simple metal mechanism that does exactly what it's supposed to do. So what is a lock? It's a mechanical or electronic puzzle, a guardian of the mundane and the precious, a bridge between ancient ingenuity and future tech. It's the reason you can leave your house each morning and trust that your stuff will be there when you get back. It's a tiny piece of engineering that carries a huge weight of meaning. Thanks for joining me on this lock-filled journey. If you enjoyed unlocking the secrets of locks, make sure to check out our other What Is videos. Drop your own lock stories in the comments below. Have you ever been locked out in a funny or dramatic way? We'd love to hear them. And remember, keep locking, keep learning, and see you in the next one. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a bustling city. The neon signs are flashing, the honking taxis are screaming for attention, and you have absolutely no idea where the nearest coffee shop is. Now imagine a tiny piece of paper in your pocket that can tell you not only where that coffee shop is, but also how to get there, what the traffic looks like, and whether the barista is currently on a break. That, my friends, is a map. Humanity's oldest, most indispensable cheat code for making sense of a chaotic world. But maps are far more than just road signs on paper. They are the DNA of civilization, the invisible threads that stitch together exploration, trade, war, love, and everything in between. So let's pull back the curtain and answer the question, what is a map? Definition. At its core, a map is a symbolic representation of a portion of the world, be it a city, a continent, or the entire planet, flattened onto a two-dimensional surface. It's a snapshot of reality, drawn to scale, but not in the way a photograph is. A map chooses what to show and what to hide, like a storyteller who decides which details deserve the spotlight and which are left in the shadows. The word map itself traces back to the Latin mappa, meaning tablecloth or napkin. In ancient times, people literally drew on anything that could lay flat. Cloth, animal skins, even the back of a Ptolemy's grocery list. Okay, maybe not that last one. The key is that a map is a model of the world, designed to help us navigate, understand, and communicate spatial information. But a map is not a static relic. It's an evolving language that has been spoken in cave paintings, on clay tablets, on parchment scrolls, on printed paper, and now on glowing screens that fit in our pockets. In each iteration, the goal stays the same, to turn the bewildering vastness of the Earth into something we can hold, read, and most importantly, trust. History. The story of maps is as old as humanity itself. Long before GPS satellites circled the globe, our ancestors were leaving their mark on the world in the most creative ways they could imagine. Picture a dimly lit cave in Lascaux, France, about 17,000 years ago. A prehistoric artist, perhaps a little bored after a mammoth hunt, scratches a few lines onto the wall. Those lines, now known as the Lascaux Cave Map, depict the layout of the cave system. Perhaps the first attempt at "you are here." It's not exactly Google Maps, but it's a start. Move forward a few millennia to ancient Mesopotamia. The Babylonians, those brilliant engineers of irrigation, created the Imago Mundi, a clay tablet dating to around 600 BCE. It shows Babylon at the center of the world, surrounded by a circular, bitter river. In other words, they drew their world with the capital city as the epicenter, a concept that would later be reincarnated in countless maps that placed any given city at the center of the universe. Talk about a local bias. Then came the Greeks, who took map-making from a scribble to a science. Eratosthenes, a librarian in Alexandria, actually measured the Earth's circumference around 240 BCE, using shadows and a bit of trigonometry. He was off by only a few hundred miles. Impressive when you consider he didn't have a calculator or a coffee break. Ptolemy, a few centuries later, gave us the coordinate system of latitude and longitude, forever shaping how we locate places on the globe. The Middle Ages saw maps become a blend of geography and theology. The famous TO maps placed Jerusalem at the center, east at the top, and the world as a circle surrounded by the ocean, a sort of medieval "you are here" for pilgrims. They were not exactly accurate, but they were spectacularly artistic, often adorned with mythical creatures and biblical stories. The age of exploration in the 15th and 16th centuries turned mapmaking into a high-stakes industry. Mariners needed reliable charts to cross oceans that seemed infinite. Enter Gerardus Mercator, who in 1569 introduced the Mercator projection, a cylindrical map that straightened out the rum lines, making navigation easier for sailors, albeit at the cost of distorting the size of continents near the poles. For centuries, schoolchildren would stare at a map of Africa and think the continent was roughly the same size as Greenland, thanks to this projection. It's a cartographic joke that still makes geography teachers wince. The printing press accelerated the spread of maps, turning them from bespoke works of art into mass-produced tools. By the 18th century, surveys like the Cassini maps in France were producing detailed, accurate depictions of entire nations. The age of the Great Map was in full swing, and the world was quickly becoming a little smaller, one line at a time. Modern technology. Fast forward to today, and the map in your pocket is a miracle of silicon, satellites, and sheer human ingenuity. First, there's the Global Positioning System, or GPS, a constellation of about 30 satellites orbiting Earth, each constantly whispering, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." Your smartphone listens to those whispers, does a little triangulation, and tells you exactly where you are, often down to a few meters. It's like having a personal astronomer in your back pocket, except the astronomer never gets tired and doesn't charge a consulting fee. Then there's the rise of digital mapping platforms like Google Maps, Apple Maps, and OpenStreetMap. These are not just static images, they're living databases, constantly updated by millions of users who add new roads, close old ones, and flag that the coffee shop on the corner now has a secret menu. The result is a map that evolves in real time, a collaborative masterpiece that would make any medieval cartographer weep with joy, or possibly with jealousy. Under the hood, these platforms rely on Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, a technology that layers spatial data onto digital maps, allowing us to analyze patterns, model scenarios, and make decisions. Want to know where the best spot is to open a new pizza place? GIS can overlay demographics, traffic flow, and competitor locations to give you an answer faster than you can say, "extra pepperoni." And let's not forget the revolution of aerial and satellite imagery. Companies like Maxar and Planet now capture high-resolution photos of the entire planet every few days. These images are stitched together, analyzed by artificial intelligence, and turned into the crisp satellite views you see when you zoom in on a remote mountain or a bustling megacity. It's like having a global telescope that never blinks. Augmented reality, AR, is also stepping onto the map, literally. Imagine pointing your phone at a street corner and seeing floating arrows that guide you to your destination, or historical photos overlaid on the present-day buildings. That's not science fiction, it's the latest iteration of the map, and it's only going to get more immersive. If you're finding this journey through the world of maps as fascinating as a treasure map leading to a hidden chest of gold, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We've got more amazing stories coming your way. How maps change the world. Maps have never been just about getting from point A to point B. They have, on many occasions, rewritten the very course of human history. Consider the age of exploration. When Christopher Columbus set sail in 1492, he was following a map, specifically a set of miscalculated charts that suggested a shorter route to Asia. While he famously discovered the Americas, his journey was powered by cartographic optimism. The maps that followed the explorers didn't just record new lands, they claimed them, dividing the New World between Spain and Portugal in the infamous Treaty of Tordesillas. In this way, maps became tools of empire, drawing lines on paper that would later become borders on the ground, shaping nations, wars, and the lives of millions. In war, maps have been as lethal as any weapon. During World War II, the Allied forces used detailed aerial surveys to plan the D-Day landings, pinpointing the precise beaches, dunes, and fortifications of Normandy. The success of that operation and the subsequent liberation of Europe rested on cartographic precision. Even today, modern militaries employ geospatial intelligence to coordinate drone strikes, troop movements, and humanitarian relief, proving that the pen, or the pixel, is indeed mightier than the sword. Maps have also fueled economic growth. The early trade routes, from the Silk Road to the transatlantic voyages, were plotted on maps that connected distant cultures, enabling the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. Without accurate charts, the spice trade would have remained a risky gamble, and the Industrial Revolution might have been delayed by a few centuries. Urban planning is another arena where maps have left an indelible mark. When city planners lay out new neighborhoods, transit lines, or parks, they rely on detailed maps that show topography, zoning laws, and population density. The grid of New York City, the winding boulevards of Paris, and the canals of Amsterdam all exist because someone at some point consulted a map and decided, yes, this looks like a good idea. Perhaps most surprisingly, maps have shaped our very perception of the world. The Mercator projection, for instance, inflated the size of the Northern Hemisphere, subtly reinforcing the idea that Europe and North America were more important than they actually are. This cartographic bias has been debated for decades, prompting cartographers to create alternative projections, like the Gall-Peters projection, that aim for a more equitable representation. In this sense, maps are not neutral. They are lenses through which we view the world, and they can either reinforce or challenge our biases. The future. So what does the map of tomorrow look like? If the past is any indication, it will be something we can barely imagine today. One of the most exciting frontiers is the mapping of other planets. NASA's rovers on Mars are already creating detailed maps of the red planet's surface, and upcoming missions aim to chart its subsurface, atmosphere, and perhaps even its water resources. Imagine a future where Google Maps Mars tells you the best route to the Olympus Mons hiking trail, complete with real-time dust storm warnings. On Earth, the convergence of AI and mapping is set to make our maps smarter than ever. Autonomous vehicles, for instance, rely on ultra-precise three-dimensional maps that include not just roads, but lane markings, traffic signs, and even the curvature of the road. These maps are updated in real time as cars drive, creating a constantly refreshing data set that could one day eliminate the need for human drivers altogether. Personalization is another trend. Your map could soon know your preferences. Perhaps you prefer scenic routes over fastest ones, or you love historic districts. Imagine a map that proactively suggests detours to a hidden gem of a bakery, or warns you that your favorite coffee spot is closed for renovation. It's like having a personal travel concierge that lives inside your phone. And then there's the promise of digital twins, virtual replicas of entire cities that can be manipulated in real time. Want to see what a new skyscraper would look like? Or simulate a flood scenario? A digital twin of a city, powered by high-resolution mapping data, can do exactly that, helping planners make better decisions and citizens visualize change before it happens. Finally, as we grapple with climate change, maps will become essential tools for understanding and mitigating environmental impacts. From mapping deforestation in the Amazon to tracking ice loss in the Arctic, geospatial data will help scientists visualize the planet's health and guide policies that could determine the future of our species. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of maps, please hit the like button, share this video with fellow geography nerds, and subscribe to the What Is channel. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you'll be the first to know when we explore the next mind-blowing topic. Bonus fact. Here's a little cartographic nugget to leave you with. The largest hand-drawn map ever created is the Kunyu Wanguo Quantu, a Chinese world map from 1602. It measures a staggering 5.5 meters by 3.5 meters and depicts the entire known world at the time, complete with thousands of place names, illustrations of peoples, and even mythical creatures. It was produced by the Jesuit missionary Matteo Ricci and his Chinese collaborators, and it remains a testament to the power of maps to bridge cultures, even when those cultures are separated by oceans and centuries. So the next time you glance at a map on your phone, remember, you're holding a piece of history, a tool for the future, and quite possibly the world's most sophisticated doodle. Thanks for watching, and keep exploring. Imagine you're walking down the street. The sun is shining, birds are singing, life is good. And then, disaster. Your shoelace comes undone. You stop, you bend down, you try to tie it, and while you're crouched there like a flamingo having an existential crisis, someone walks by and whispers, "Is that a croc?" Friend, that is a fate worse than death. And today, we're going to make sure that never happens to you. Because by the end of this video, you will know absolutely everything about what goes on your feet. So, what is a shoe? Definition. Let's get technical for a second. According to the dictionary, and yes, I made my dictionary look up shoe specifically for this, a shoe is a covering for the foot, typically having a thick sole and heel, and made of leather, rubber, or other material. Boring? Sure. Accurate? Absolutely. But here's what dictionaries don't tell you. A shoe is also a status symbol, a form of self-expression, a multi-billion-dollar industry that has men spending $400 on footwear that their wives literally cannot comprehend. And yet, women will spend $600 on a handbag. So we're even. Actually, we're not. But we'll get to that later. The average person walks about 110,000 miles in their lifetime. That's enough to circle the Earth 4 times. And all of that walking? It's happening on shoes. Your shoes are literally carrying you through life. The least you can do is learn what the heck they actually are. So grab your favorite pair, the ones that are so worn out your mother judges you every time she sees them, and let's dive in. Origins. Okay, so where did shoes come from? The short answer? We don't actually know for certain. The long answer? We've got some pretty good evidence, and it's absolutely fascinating. The oldest known shoe? Discovered in 2008 in a cave in Armenia. These babies are about 5,500 years old. They're called the Arini-1 shoe, and they're basically a piece of leather shaped into a rough moccasin, stuffed with grass for cushioning. And here's the wild part. They found it in near-perfect condition because the cave was basically a climate-controlled storage unit for 55 centuries. But honestly, humans were probably protecting their feet way before that. Think about it. You walk on hot sand, sharp rocks, icy snow. Your feet hurt. What do? You wrap them in something. That's practically Shoe 101. Ancient Egyptians? They wore sandals. Simple, elegant, practical. I walked so that you could have sandals. The wealthy ones had ones made from expensive leather. The common folks? Papyrus. Yes, the same stuff they wrote important documents on. Imagine writing the Declaration of Independence on your flip-flops. That's basically what was happening. The Romans, always thinking ahead, were the first to have left and right shoes. Before that, both feet were basically the same shape, which explains a lot about ancient walking styles. The Romans also created the first standardized sizing system. Thank you, Roman Empire. Please come back. We need you for... Actually, never mind. That's a different video. And in China, they were inventing shoes centuries before the West caught up. The Chinese developed shoes for bound feet. Yes, the horrible practice of foot binding. and created sophisticated silk slippers for the wealthy. Meanwhile, in Europe, people were still figuring out which hole their toes were supposed to go in. Fun fact, the word shoe is one of the oldest words in the English language. It shows up in something called Proto-Germanic, which is basically English's great-great-great-great-grandmother. So next time you tie your shoes, just remember, you're participating in a linguistic tradition that stretches back thousands of years. You're welcome. That'll be the only time I ever make that joke. Development. Alright, fast forward a bit. We're out of the cave, we're past the Romans, and now it's the Middle Ages. And let me tell you, medieval shoe fashion was wild. The pointy shoes, called polnaises, they could be up to 2.5 feet long. That's not a shoe, that's a weapon. People were literally impaling themselves on their own footwear. There's a reason they called them crack pipes, and it's not because they were comfortable. And then came the Renaissance, and suddenly everyone wanted to be fancy. Heels became a thing. And here's a plot twist. Heels were originally for men. Yes, gentlemen. Persian cavalrymen wore heels to stay in their stirrups. Then it spread to Europe, and suddenly every nobleman worth his salt was strapping on a heel. It wasn't until the 18th century that women claimed heels as their own. So really, when you think about it, high heels are manly. You're welcome, guys. Don't use that information to be weird, though. The Industrial Revolution changed everything. In the 1800s, we went from handmade bespoke shoes to mass production. And suddenly, regular people could afford shoes. Actually, afford them. Not save for 6 months afford, just regular afford. And then, 1900s, this guy named Milton Sears invented the sneaker. Wait, no, that's not right. Let me check my notes. Yes. In 1895, a British company called J.W. Foster & Sons started making athletic shoes for runners. They were handmade. By 1908, they were selling to the Olympics. And in 1908, an American company called B.F. Goodrich, you know, the tire company, started making sneakers under the brand name Keds. Keds. The name alone is enough to make you want to buy them. Then came Adidas, then Nike. Then every single person on Earth decided they needed 17 pairs of shoes that look basically the same. Before we keep going, hit that subscribe button, because if you enjoyed this, you're going to love our other videos. Okay, back to shoes. Notable styles. Okay, this is the part where we talk about the big players, the heavy hitters, the shoes that changed history one step at a time. First up, the loafer. These babies have no laces, no buckles, no stress. You just slip them on and go. Hence the name. Someone in the 1930s looked at traditional moccasins, added a leather strap across the top, and said, you know what this needs? Nothing. It needs nothing. And the loafer was born. Perfect for guys who want to look like they have their lives together when really they're just running late to everything. Next, the high heel. As we discussed, originally for guys, now dominated by women. The stiletto, that thin spiky heel that makes walking feel like you're defusing a bomb, that was invented in the 1950s by Christian Dior. He said, women need to feel unstable at all times. Okay, he didn't say that, but sometimes it feels that way. The sneaker, the big one, the cultural phenomenon. In 1979, a running shoe called the Nike Air Tailwind changed everything. Then in 1982, Nike released the Air Force One. And now you can pay $400 for shoes that were originally made for basketball players. The irony? They were initially rejected by NBA players because they were too heavy. How times have changed. And how can we talk about notable styles without mentioning the boot? From the combat boot, to the rain boot, to the extremely impractical but adorable rain boot shaped like a duck. You name it, boots have done it. They cover your ankle. They make you feel like you could hike a mountain. You will not hike a mountain, but you'll feel like you could. And finally, the sandal. The oldest style known to humanity. Still going strong, still comfortable, still leaving your toes exposed for every sharp object on the ground. Why do we persist? Because they're comfortable. That's it. Comfort wins every time, except in winter. Never in winter. Fun facts. Okay, here's where things get weird. And by weird, I mean exactly the kind of information you can drop at parties to make everyone uncomfortable. Fact 1. The average person buys 4 pairs of shoes per year. 4. And apparently, most of those are bought online while feeling anxious at 2 a.m. I didn't ask for that to be true, but it is. Fact 2. Women buy more shoes than men. Shocking. But here's the kicker. Women also wear an average of 4 different pairs of shoes per day. That sounds exhausting, and painful, and expensive. I don't understand how any woman has any money left after shoe shopping. Fact 3. There's a museum in Toronto dedicated entirely to shoes. It's called the Bata Shoe Museum. No, I'm not making that up. There are over 15,000 shoes there, including some that belong to celebrities. Yes, I'm looking at you, Elvis. You had some interesting footwear choices. Fact 4. In medieval Europe, shoes were used as status symbols, so extreme that there were actual laws about how long your toe could be. If you were a commoner, your shoe toe could only be 2 inches long. Nobles? Up to 6 inches. The peasants literally looked up to the rich because they literally looked up at their ridiculous footwear. Fact 5. The most expensive shoes ever sold, $600,000. For 1 pair, made of ostrich skin, with diamonds on them, and someone actually bought them. That person could have bought a nice house, a very nice house. Instead, they bought shoes. And honestly, I respect the commitment to footwear. Fact 6. The right shoe is traditionally placed first, because no reason. It's just a thing. Now you know. Use that information to confuse people. Modern significance. So here's the thing. Shoes aren't just footwear anymore. They're identity, they're culture. They're a $365 billion global industry. That's with a B, and it's still growing. Sneaker culture is now a religion. People camp outside stores for days to buy limited edition shoes. There are people whose entire income depends on buying shoes and reselling them for triple the price. It's called sneaker flipping. And honestly, respect the hustle. The prices are insane, but the hustle is real. And sustainability is becoming a huge deal. Companies are now making shoes out of ocean plastic, mushroom leather, and recycled rubber. You can literally walk on the planet while wearing the planet. It's very full circle. Very we destroyed it, now we're making it into sneakers. The future of shoes? Smart shoes. Shoes that track your steps, adjust to your foot temperature, and probably judge you for not walking enough. They're coming. They might already be here. I don't know. I'm still excited about Velcro. And there you have it. You now know what a shoe is, where it came from, how it evolved, why your bank account cries every time a new drop happens, and why those pointy medieval shoes were absolutely a cry for help. So here's my challenge to you. Look down at your feet right now. Whatever you're wearing, those tired sneakers, those elegant heels, those slippers you've worn into the ground, appreciate them. They are carrying you through life, one step at a time. Now go forth, walk confidently, tie your shoes properly, or don't, I'm not your mother. And remember, life is short. Buy good shoes. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, like button, ring that notification bell. Do all the things YouTube wants you to do, because we have so much more to explain. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and one more thing. Bonus fact. The average woman will spend approximately $120,000 on shoes in her lifetime. That's more than she spends on rent in some cities. That's more than a small car. That's more than I spend on, well, everything combined. Raise your hand if you've ever yelled at a piece of glass and plastic because your friend's face froze mid-laugh during a vital debate about whether hot dogs are sandwiches. Yeah, us too. We take this for granted. A tiny slab in our pocket, lets us whisper secrets to someone sipping espresso in Tokyo, argue with a relative in Toronto about pineapple on pizza, or crucially, order emergency tacos at 2 a.m. But stop, really stop. Think about it. Your voice, just vibrations in air, somehow becomes electrical impulses, zips through wires, satellites, or invisible waves, crosses continents and oceans, and reforms as sound in someone else's ear, almost instantly. How is that not magic? Well, folks, it's not magic. It's science. And today, on What Is, we're diving deep into the glorious, slightly weird, wonderfully human story of the telephone. From spilt acid to satellite selfies, we're tracing how we learned to shout into a box and be heard worldwide, and stick around till the end for today's bonus fact. Let's get connected. Origins. When Mr. Watson, come here, wasn't just a polite request. Imagine Boston, 1876. Not the bustling hub of clam chowder and Red Sox dreams we know today, but a city gaslit by ingenuity and the fierce smell of ozone from early electrical experiments. Our hero, Alexander Graham Bell. Now, before you picture a stern Victorian gentleman, know this: Bell was a teacher of the deaf, deeply passionate about helping people communicate. His wife Mabel was deaf. His mother was deaf. Sound, or the lack thereof, was his obsession. He wasn't trying to invent a device for chatting about the weather. He was trying to build a harmonic telegraph, a way to send multiple telegraph messages simultaneously over one wire using different pitches. Think of it like sending multiple radio stations down a single road. But Bell kept getting distracted. He kept hearing speech, not just dots and dashes, but the complex, messy beauty of human voice, the sighs, the laughs, the ums. He wondered, could we send speech this way? He tinkered with membranes, electromagnets, and liquids that conducted electricity when vibrated by sound. Enter Thomas Watson, his patient and long-suffering assistant. One fateful June afternoon, Bell spilled battery acid on his clothes. He yelled into his transmitter, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." Watson, down the hall, heard it clearly through the receiver. Not a code, not a buzz. Words. Bell had done it. He transmitted intelligible speech electrically. He rushed to the patent office that very morning, February 14th, Valentine's Day, fittingly enough, and filed his patent. Hours later, Elisha Gray filed a caveat, a kind of placeholder patent, for a strikingly similar device. Cue over a century of historical debate. Who really invented the telephone? Bell got the patent. Gray got, well, a footnote. And Antonio Meucci? He demonstrated a voice communication device years earlier, but couldn't afford the patent fee. History's messy, folks. But March 10th, 1876 is generally celebrated as the day the telephone was born, not for chatting about the latest bonnet, but for proving that sound could ride electricity. The world would never be quiet again. Development and international calls, from noisy parlors to transatlantic whispers. Early telephones were earnest, clumsy, loud, a bulky wooden box mounted on a wall. You spoke into a horn-like mouthpiece, then had to snap a switch to listen through a separate earpiece. Talk, then listen. Talk, then listen. It was less conversation and more walkie-talkie with manners. And the noise. Early systems used single wires grounded through the earth, which meant your conversation happily shared space with telegraph signals, streetcar arcs, and the occasional lightning storm. Imagine trying to discuss your aunt's rheumatism while a Morse code tap dance solo played in the background. Enter the switchboard. Suddenly you didn't need a direct wire to every person you knew. You called a central office. A human operator, often a young woman, deemed to have pleasant voices and nimble fingers, society's charmingly reductive logic, would plug cords into a massive board, connecting your line to theirs. Number Please became the soundtrack of urban life. Operators weren't just pluggers, they were early network managers, gossip hubs, discreetly hopefully, and sometimes emergency coordinators. During disasters, they'd stay at their boards, connecting calls for help long after others fled. But how do you call London from Lima? Or Chicago from Chennai? You needed wires that wouldn't quit. Undersea cables. Remember those? They started with telegraph in the 1850s. Shout out to the transatlantic telegraph cable that worked for about 3 weeks before failing spectacularly. Turns out saltwater and 19th century insulation were not best friends. But for voice, you needed better insulation, amplifiers to boost the fading signal over vast distances, and cables tough enough to survive anchors. Sharks? Yes, really. Early cables sometimes got nibbled. And the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. The breakthrough came with loading coils, invented by Michael Pupin and independently by George Campbell. Little inductors wrapped along the line that acted like signal boosters, preventing the high-frequency sounds of speech from fading out. Then, in 1956, TAT-1 launched, the first transatlantic telephone cable. No more relying on crackly, expensive radio links that worked only when the ionosphere behaved. TAT-1 carried 36 simultaneous voice calls between Newfoundland and Scotland. Suddenly, calling your cousin in Dublin wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime event reserved for emergencies or the ultra-wealthy. It became plausible. Expensive? Yes. A 3-minute call cost roughly $12, about $130 today. But possible. The world shrank a little more. Operators still connected these international calls manually for years, patching you through across continents like human routers. Imagine the concentration. London calling, standby for Glasgow, now routing to Sydney via Singapore. It was a global game of telephone, played with patch cords and serious focus. If you're enjoying this journey through the telephone, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps the YouTube algorithm and warms my soul. Next, let's look at going wireless. When the cord got cut and we started talking to our shoes. Ah, the sweet, sweet freedom of no cords. But wireless telephony didn't start with your pocket supercomputer. It started in cars. Yes, really, imagine a 1940s luxury automobile. Not just a radio, but a telephone bolted to the dashboard. You needed a massive antenna on the roof, a trunk full of vacuum tube equipment, hot, heavy, prone to eating car batteries for breakfast, and you better hope you weren't driving through a tunnel. These early mobile telephone services, MTS, were limited to a few channels per city, meaning if all the lines were busy, you waited, and hoped your important call about the stock market or your mistress's alibi wasn't bumped by someone chatting about the weather. The real revolution came from Bell Labs. In 1947, engineers proposed a radical idea. Divide a city into small hexagonal cells, each with its own base station and set of frequencies. As you move from one cell to another, your call would seamlessly hand off, like passing a baton in a relay race. This was the cellular concept. But the technology to make it work, reliable transistors, compact electronics, sophisticated switching, wasn't ready for decades. Then, on April 3rd, 1973, Martin Cooper, a Motorola engineer, stepped onto a New York City sidewalk. He pulled out a device that looked like a brick wrapped in beige plastic, the Dynatac 8000X. It weighed 2.5 pounds, offered 20 minutes of talk time after a 10-hour charge, and cost nearly $4,000. He made the first public handheld cellular phone call to his rival at Bell Labs, Joel Engel. Can you imagine Engel's face? The first words spoken on a public mobile call weren't about pizza or the weather. They were a polite, slightly smug. Joel, this is Marty Cooper. I'm calling you from a cell phone, a real handheld portable cell phone. Mic drop. The brick phone era had begun. For the next decade, cell phones were status symbols for yuppies and drug dealers. The latter appreciated the mobility. They were big, expensive, and the networks were still analog, prone to eavesdropping. Just tune your radio to the right frequency. But the genie was out of the bottle. the cord was cut. We were no longer tethered to the wall. We could talk while walking, while standing in line, while arguably ignoring the people right in front of us. Progress? Modern day. Your phone is a supercomputer that also makes calls, sometimes. Look at that slab in your hand again. It's not just a phone, it's your camera, your map, your library, your game console, your bank, your TV, your alarm clock. And yes, it can still make calls. But how? The analog brick phones are long gone. We're digital now. Your voice gets sampled thousands of times a second, turned into numbers, ones and zeros, compressed, encrypted, and shoved into packets. Tiny digital envelopes. These packets don't care if they're carrying your voice, a cat video, or your latest tweet. They all zip through the same internet-powered infrastructure. Your phone talks to the nearest cell tower using radio waves, specific frequencies licensed to carriers. That tower connects to the core network, a vast web of fiber optic cables, the modern supercharged descendants of those undersea telegraph lines, and data centers. If you're calling someone on the same network, it might stay relatively local. If you're calling internationally, your voice packets might hop across undersea fiber optic cables. Modern ones carry terabits per second, enough for millions of simultaneous calls, or bounce off satellites. Then at the other end, the process reverses. Packets are reassembled, decompressed, decrypted, turned back into an analog signal, and fed into the recipient's speaker. All in milliseconds. And it's not just voice calls anymore. We have VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol. Think Skype, WhatsApp, FaceTime, where your voice travels purely as data over the internet, bypassing traditional phone networks entirely. We have video calls, where your face joins the party. We have AI screening spam calls, bless those algorithms, real-time translation, suddenly arguing about pizza toppings in Milan is easier, and even phones that can sense your heartbeat or blood oxygen levels. The telephone, once a single-purpose device for transmitting sound, has become the Swiss Army knife of communication, and its original function, while still vital, is often just one app among many. We've gone from needing an operator to connect us to needing a Wi-Fi password to feel connected. The irony? We're more capable of global conversation than ever, yet sometimes struggle to talk to the person sitting next to us. The future. What's next for the human voice in the machine? So where do we go from here? The brick phone to the smartphone was a leap. What's the next bound? Seamless integration. Imagine your glasses, or even a subtle implant picking up sub-vocalizations, the tiny muscle movements when you think words, and transmitting them silently. No speaking aloud needed. Private thoughts shared instantly. Privacy implications? Oh boy, we'll need a whole other video for that. Holographic presence. Forget flat video. What if your call projected a lifelike 3D hologram of the other person into your living room? You could reach out, virtually, and shake hands. Distance becomes less about miles and more about bandwidth. Neural links. Elon Musk's Neuralink and others are experimenting with direct brain-computer interfaces. Could we one day call someone by simply thinking of them, with the system decoding intent and stimulating the recipient's auditory cortex to perceive the message? Sound like sci-fi? So did wireless voice calls to Bell and Watson. Beyond voice. Maybe the future isn't just about sending voice better. Maybe it's about richer context, sharing not just words, but emotional tone via haptic feedback, a gentle pulse on your wrist conveying urgency, or ambient environment, letting your friend hear the cafe buzz behind you as you chat. The core drive hasn't changed since Bell yelled into that transmitter. We crave connection. We want to be heard, to understand, to share a laugh or a tear across the miles. The telephone, in all its evolving forms, is just the tool we've built to bridge that gap. It's a testament to human ingenuity, taking the ephemeral magic of our voices and harnessing physics, engineering, and sheer stubbornness to make it travel farther, faster, and clearer than nature ever intended. So next time you curse your dropped call, Remember, you're frustrated because you expect to talk to someone on the other side of the planet as easily as chatting with your neighbor. That expectation is the highest compliment we can pay to the inventors, the engineers, the operators, the linemen, the coders, and the dreamers who turned a scientific curiosity into the invisible thread that weaves our world together. The telephone isn't just wires and waves, it's us, reaching out. If you enjoyed this journey from spilt acid to satellite selfies, please smash that like button. It helps the algorithm show this video to more curious minds like yours. And if you haven't already, subscribe to What Is and ring that notification bell. We've got a whole universe of what is questions waiting to be explored. Now before you go, and before you hit that sweet subscribe button, I've got a bonus fact for you. Something that didn't quite fit in the main story, but is too delightfully weird not to share. Bonus fact. The very first telephone switchboard, installed in 1878 in New Haven, Connecticut, had an unexpected problem. The operators kept getting married. Why? Because the job was considered respectable, well paid for women at the time, and required excellent manners and a clear voice, traits highly prized in potential brides. Within a year, nearly half the original operators had left the switchboard for the altar. Talk about making connections. See you next time. Imagine you're late for a flight. You've grabbed your suitcase, your passport, your sanity, all the essentials. You reach the airport, chest heaving, and you go to open your bag to grab your boarding pass. And then it happens. The zipper's stuck, you pull, you yank. You give it that desperate, slightly aggressive tug that you're definitely not proud of. Nothing. The teeth stare back at you, mockingly interlocked, refusing to budge. We've all been there. That moment of pure, unadulterated frustration when a simple mechanism, something you've used 1,000 times without a second thought, suddenly decides to betray you. But here's the thing. That little strip of interlocking teeth on your jacket, your bag, your jeans, it's a masterpiece of engineering. It's the result of over a century of innovation, obsession, and honestly, a little bit of madness. It saved you time, effort, and dignity more times than you probably ever realized. So today, on What Is, we're going there. We're pulling back the curtain on one of the most ubiquitous, essential, and utterly taken for granted inventions in human history. This is the story of the zipper. Definition. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a zipper? A zipper is a fastening device consisting of 2 rows of interlocking metal or plastic teeth, joined together or separated by the movement of a slider. That's the textbook definition. But that description? It's about as exciting as reading the nutritional information on a rice cake. Think of it this way. A zipper is the silent hero that holds your life together, literally. It's the reason your jacket keeps you warm, your backpack keeps your stuff in, and your pants stay, well, up. It's the mechanical backbone of modern clothing and accessories, working tirelessly, usually without a single word of thanks. The beauty of the zipper lies in its elegant simplicity. 2 chains of teeth, 1 slider, 1 pull tab. That's it. No buttons to fumble with in the dark. No snaps that attack your fingers at inopportune moments. Just a smooth, satisfying glide that either opens your world or seals it shut. But, and here's where it gets interesting, the zipper is far more than just a convenience. It's a revolution. It's a tiny piece of engineering brilliance that changed how humans dress, travel, and live. And to understand how we got here, we need to travel back in time. Origin. The story of the zipper begins in the late 19th century, specifically 1893, with an inventor named Whitcomb Judson. Judson was an American mechanical engineer with a problem and a mission. He had a friend who couldn't tie his shoes. Now, before you start thinking this is the setup for a bad joke, hear me out. This friend suffered from a debilitating back condition, making bending over to tie shoelaces agonizingly painful. Judson saw this struggle daily, and something clicked. What if, thought Judson, there was a way to fasten shoes without the acrobatics of bending and tying? What if you could just clip them on? And so the clasp lock shoe was born. Judson's invention, which he called the Security, was essentially an early ancestor of the modern zipper, a system of interlocking clasps that could be opened and closed with a single sliding motion. There was just one small problem. It didn't really work all that well. The original design was clunky, unreliable, and frankly, a bit of a nightmare. The clasps would jam, pop open unexpectedly, and generally cause more problems than they solved. It was ahead of its time in concept, but the execution needed work. And that's where our next character enters the story. Gideon Sundback. Yes, that's really his name. And no, I couldn't make it up if I tried. Was a Swedish-American electrical engineer working for the Universal Fastener Company, which had acquired Judson's patent. Sundback looked at Judson's clunky creation and thought, I can fix this. And fix it he did. In 1913, Sundback developed the separable fastener, a dramatically improved version of Judson's original design. He increased the number of interlocking elements, improved the slider mechanism, and essentially created the blueprint for the modern zipper. But, and here's where history gets its plot twist, nobody wanted it. History and development. For years, the zipper languished in obscurity, primarily used in the tobacco industry for sealing pouches. Yes, you heard that right. Cigarette pouches. That's where this revolutionary fastener found its first real home. So what changed? What turned this obscure industrial component into a household name? Something pretty big. World War I. During the war, the military needed something better than buttons. Buttons were slow. Buttons could pop off. Buttons were a liability when you needed to get dressed or undressed quickly in the field. The zipper, with its speed and reliability, fit the bill perfectly. It was adopted for military uniforms, specifically in the United States Navy, where it gained the nickname the Zip from the distinctive sound it made when opened or closed. And just like that, the zipper went from obscure tobacco pouch accessory to military essential. But the real breakthrough came in the 1920s, a woman named Elsie, and one very famous dress. In 1930, the fashion designer Elsa Schiaparelli introduced the zipper to the world of high fashion. She created a revolutionary evening dress that used the zipper as a design element, exposing it deliberately, making it part of the aesthetic. It was scandalous, it was daring, it was exactly what the fashion world needed. And just like that, the zipper became fashionable. By the 1930s and 1940s, zippers were everywhere. Jeans, jackets, bags. The B.F. Goodrich Company even introduced zipper-equipped boots, cementing the zipper's place in American culture. But here's the fascinating thing. For decades, the zipper was considered distinctly masculine. It was practical. It was utilitarian. It was not something for proper women who were supposed to use buttons and snaps. That perception changed slowly, driven by a combination of practicality, wartime necessity, and the bold moves of designers like Schiaparelli. By the 1960s and 1970s, the zipper was unisex, firmly established as an essential component of modern clothing for everyone, and the engineering continued to evolve. How it works. Let's get technical for a moment, because the mechanics of a zipper are genuinely fascinating. Here's the basic anatomy. You have two tapes, flexible fabric strips, with the teeth attached along the edges. These tapes are the chains. When the slider joins them together, the teeth interlock, creating a secure closure. The slider is the heart of the operation. It's a small metal or plastic housing with a Y-shaped channel inside. When you pull the slider, the tapered entry forces the teeth together, while the exit separates them when you want to open. The pull tab, what you hold onto, is attached to the slider and serves as your interface with the mechanism. But here's where it gets really interesting. The teeth themselves. Modern zippers typically use one of two tooth designs, interlocking or coil. Interlocking teeth are the classic teeth you probably picture when you think of a zipper, individual metal or plastic pieces that physically hook into each other. They're durable, precise, and create that satisfying zip sound. Coil zippers, on the other hand, use a continuous coiled wire, typically polyester, stitched into the tape. The slider works by separating or joining the coils. These are often found in heavy-duty applications like tents or marine equipment because they're more flexible and can handle greater stress. And then there's the YKK. Yes, there's a brand name worth knowing. Yoshida Kogyo Kabushiki Gaisha. That's the full name. It's a Japanese company that produces about half of all the zippers in the world. Their name has become synonymous with quality zipper. And when you see that little YKK on your zipper pull, you know you're dealing with the gold standard. Fun fact, YKK actually makes their own zipper making machines. They control the entire production process. It's one of those fascinating bits of manufacturing trivia that makes you realize how much goes into the things we use every single day without thinking. Now here's where we get to the really cool part, the different types. Before we dive into the varieties, let's take a quick pit stop. If you're finding this story engaging, and I hope you are, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to know more about the hidden engineering behind everyday objects, well, you've come to the right place. Alright, let's continue. Different types. Not all zippers are created equal. Depending on the application, you need different types of fasteners. Let's break down the main categories. Closed-end zippers are the most common. The classic example, your jeans. The zipper opens from the top but stops before reaching the bottom, leaving the bottom of the seam permanently closed. This provides structural integrity and is perfect for applications where you need the opening to be secure at both ends. Open-end zippers, also known as separating zippers, are exactly what they sound like. They open completely, allowing the two sides to fully separate. Your jacket? That's an open-end zipper. They're perfect for outerwear, sleeping bags, and any application where you need full access. Invisible zippers are a marvel of concealment. The teeth are hidden behind the tape, making the zipper itself invisible when closed. These are the zippers you find in formal dresses, skirts, and anywhere where aesthetics matter. They're more delicate and require special sewing techniques, but the visual result is worth it. Metal zippers use individual metal teeth, typically brass, nickel, or aluminum. They're the classic choice, durable, and reliable. You'll find them in jeans, workwear, and heavy-duty applications. Plastic zippers use molded plastic teeth. They're lighter, often more colorful, and commonly found in outdoor gear, luggage, and children's clothing. They're also more resistant to corrosion, a significant advantage in certain environments. Molded tooth zippers are a hybrid, a plastic coil that's molded into individual tooth shapes. They're incredibly smooth and have become increasingly popular in high-performance applications. Water-resistant zippers take things to another level. These are coated with a waterproof material, typically polyurethane, and have a laminated tape. They're essential for outerwear, marine applications, and any environment where moisture is a concern. Antique zippers are the vintage aesthetic option. They have a deliberately aged, worn look, the patina of history right on your jacket. They're a popular choice in fashion, where distressed is often a compliment. And then there's the world of specialized zippers. Decorative zippers, fire-rated zippers, conductive zippers for electronics, and even zippers designed for spacesuits. Yes, there's a zipper on the suit that astronauts wear. And yes, it has to work in the vacuum of space, with extreme temperature fluctuations, and under intense pressure. That's the thing about the zipper. It's everywhere. It's in places you'd never think to look. Uses, the obvious uses are everywhere. Your jeans, your jackets, your bags, your purses, your backpacks, your sleeping bags, your tents. But let's dig deeper. Fashion and apparel is the obvious home, but even there, the zipper has revolutionized how we think about clothing. It enabled the development of practical outerwear that could be quickly donned and removed. It transformed the simple jacket into something functional and fashionable. It made jeans what they are today, a universal staple. Outdoor and adventure gear would be lost without the zipper. Tents, sleeping bags, backpacks, Gore-Tex jackets, all rely on zippers for their functionality. The waterproof zipper changed what was possible in extreme environments. Automotive interiors are full of zippers: seat covers, door panels, console storage, sun visors. Next time you're in a car, take a moment to appreciate how many zippers you can find. It's more than you'd think. Marine applications demand zippers that can handle salt, water, and constant motion. From sailing gear to boat covers to dive equipment, the zipper is essential. Medical devices use specialized zippers in everything from compression garments to surgical gowns to orthotic supports. They're designed for sterilization, ease of use, and reliability. Aerospace and military applications push zipper technology to its limits. Spacesuits, flight suits, tactical gear, body armor, all require zippers that can perform under the most extreme conditions. Industrial and commercial uses include everything from banners and signage to heavy equipment covers to architectural features. Furniture and home goods often incorporate zippers: throw pillow covers, mattress encasements, cushion covers, storage solutions. The arts have even embraced the zipper as a medium. There are artists who create sculptures and installations using zippers, exploring themes of connection, closure, and opening. The zipper is everywhere. It's so ubiquitous that we've stopped seeing it, until it breaks, and suddenly we're reminded of its importance. Future. So what does the future hold for the humble zipper? Let's start with materials. Biodegradable zippers are already emerging, driven by the fashion industry's push towards sustainability. Zippers made from plant-based materials, recycled plastics, and biodegradable metals are hitting the market. The goal: a fastener that doesn't outlive the garment it attaches to. Smart zippers are another frontier. Imagine a zipper that can track your temperature, monitor your heart rate, or charge your phone. The integration of flexible electronics with textile zippers is an active area of research, and we're likely to see functional zippers emerge in the next decade. Magnetic zippers are being developed for applications where traditional mechanisms aren't ideal. Using magnetic attraction instead of interlocking teeth, these zippers offer unique advantages in certain environments, particularly where self-healing or extreme durability is required. Self-healing zippers sound like science fiction, but they're closer than you might think. Researchers are developing polymer zippers that can repair minor damage automatically, extending the life of the fastener and the garment. 3D printed zippers represent another frontier: the ability to produce custom zippers on demand, tailored to specific applications. This could revolutionize small batch manufacturing and customization. And then there's the bigger picture: the zipper as part of the larger conversation about sustainable fashion. Fast fashion has made zippers disposable. We buy, we wear, we discard. But as the industry shifts towards circular models, the zipper becomes important in new ways. A zipper that's easy to remove and recycle could be the key to creating truly circular garments. The future of the zipper is smart, sustainable, and more integrated than ever before. But here's what I find most fascinating: the fundamental design, 2 rows of interlocking teeth joined by a slider, has remained essentially unchanged since Sunback's improvements in 1913. That's over a century of proven design. In a world of constant change, there's something beautiful about that kind of stability. And there you have it, the story of the zipper. From Whitcomb Judson's desperate friend to the moon and back, from cigarette pouches to spacesuits, from scandalous fashion statement to universal essential. The next time you zip up your jacket, pull closed your bag, or do up your jeans, take a moment to appreciate the engineering marvel sliding between your fingers. It's a small piece of history. It's a century of innovation. It's the zipper. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of fasteners, you'll love our other deep dives. We have stories about everyday objects, science, history, and more. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And leave a comment below: what other day object should we cover next? And now, for that bonus fact I promised you. Bonus fact. Here's something to take with you. The longest zipper in the world is over 3,000 meters long. That's nearly 2 miles, and it's in a single continuous piece. It was created in Japan in 2004 and took months of meticulous manufacturing to produce. Why would anyone need such a thing? Honestly, it's mostly a demonstration of capability, a testament to human engineering ambition, but it's also a reminder that somewhere out there, there's a zipper so long it could circle a small block. And that, my friends, is the power of asking what is. Thanks for watching. See you next time. A hulking white and black beast the size of a small office building, strapped to a massive orange fuel tank, ready to launch like a fireworks display on steroids. It looks like a cross between a giant paper airplane and a delivery van that's been through a cosmic car wash. That, dear viewer, is the Space Shuttle. NASA's answer to the question, what if we could reuse a rocket like we reuse a grocery bag? Except instead of carrying milk, it carried astronauts, satellites, and the occasional dreams of kids who wanted to be astronauts when they grew up, and then realized they'd rather be professional nap takers. In simple terms, the Space Shuttle was a partially reusable launch system, designed to ferry people and payloads to low Earth orbit, do some work up there, then glide back to Earth like a skydiving snowbird, and land on a runway. No splashdown required. Think of it as the world's most expensive commuter train, except the tracks are made of rocket fire and the stations orbit the planet at 17,500 miles per hour. Origins. From dreams on paper to metal in the factory. The story begins in the late 1960s, when NASA, fresh off the Apollo moon landings, started wondering what to do next. The agency's leaders were like kids who just finished building the biggest Lego set ever, and now asked, what if we could take it apart and put it back together again? They wanted a spacecraft that could launch like a rocket, operate like a space station, and land like an airplane, all without needing a new vehicle for every mission. Enter the Space Shuttle program, officially announced in 1972 under President Nixon. The idea was bold, a fleet of orbiters that could fly up to 100 missions each, dramatically cutting the cost per launch. Engineers at NASA's Johnson Space Center, Marshall Space Flight Center, and a handful of contractors, including the now iconic Rockwell International, rolled up their sleeves, drew countless times, and began drafting designs that looked more like sci-fi concept art than engineering blueprints. Early concepts ranged from fully reusable two-stage designs to the eventual stack we know, an orange external fuel tank, two white solid rocket boosters strapped to its sides, and the sleek delta-winged orbiter perched atop like a proud peacock. The external tank would carry the liquid hydrogen and oxygen that fed the orbiter's three main engines during ascent, while the boosters provided the initial thrust. Think of them as the shuttle's training wheels, only they're massive solid propellant rockets that get jettisoned after 2 minutes and parachute back to the ocean for refurbishment. The program's goal was lofty: make space travel as routine as a cross-country flight. Of course, as we'll see, routine is a relative term when you're dealing with controlled explosions and re-entry plasma hotter than a pizza oven set to broil. Operation. How the shuttle actually worked. No magic, just physics. Let's break down a typical shuttle flight into its acts, because even a space machine loves a good 3-act structure. Act 1. Liftoff. At T0, the three main engines ignite, gulping down liquid hydrogen and oxygen at a rate that would empty an Olympic swimming pool in under a second. Simultaneously, the two solid rocket boosters roar to life, each producing about 12 million pounds of thrust, enough to lift a small mountain. The shuttle climbs, shaking like a giant soda bottle that's been shaken too hard, while the external tank feeds the engines. After about 2 minutes, the boosters burn out, separate and parachute down for recovery. The external tank continues to feed the engines until roughly 8.5 minutes after launch, when it too is jettisoned, falling back to Earth and disintegrating over the Indian Ocean, a sacrificial lamb for the cause of science. Act 2. Orbit operations. Now the orbiter, weighing about 100 tons, is cruising at roughly 17,500 miles per hour, circling the Earth every 90 minutes. Inside, astronauts float like they're in a permanent zero-G dance party. The shuttle's payload bay, a 60-foot-long, 15-foot-wide garage in space, can hold satellites, the Hubble Space Telescope, or even a Spacelab module for scientific experiments. The orbiter's maneuvering system, powered by smaller hypergolic thrusters, lets the crew pitch, yaw, and roll to point instruments, dock with the International Space Station later on, or adjust their orbit for re-entry. Power comes from fuel cells that combine hydrogen and oxygen, producing drinking water as a byproduct, so the astronauts literally sip the exhaust of their own engines. Act 3. Re-entry and landing. When it's time to come home, the shuttle fires its orbital maneuvering system engines to slow down just enough to dip into the upper atmosphere. Here's where things get spicy. The shuttle hits the atmosphere at Mach 25, and the air compresses in front of it, creating a plasma sheath that can reach temperatures of nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, about half the surface of the Sun. The orbiter's black and white thermal protection system, those iconic silica tiles, absorbs and radiates away that heat, keeping the aluminum airframe from turning into a molten puddle. As the shuttle descends, it performs a series of S-turns to bleed off speed, eventually lining up with a runway. At about Mach 1, the commander pulls up the nose, deploys the landing gear, and the shuttle touches down like a giant, weary albatross. The whole descent from orbit to runway takes roughly 35 minutes, less time than it takes to binge-watch a single episode of a sitcom, but with far higher stakes. If you've ever tried to explain this to a goldfish, it would probably just swim in circles and think you're describing a new kind of bubble bath. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Space Shuttle's story, smash that like button, share the video with a friend who still thinks space truck is a metaphor for a delivery van, and don't forget to subscribe, because we've got more what is coming faster than a shuttle's external tank can jettison. Historic moments, the good, the bad, and the what did we just watch. No story of the Space Shuttle would be complete without its highlight reel and its blooper reel. First flight, STS-1, 1981. Columbia launched on April 12, 1981, exactly 20 years after Yuri Gagarin's first human spaceflight. Commander John Young and pilot Robert Crippen became the first humans to ride a reusable spacecraft into orbit. The mission lasted 2 days, completed 36 orbits, and ended with a perfect landing at Edwards Air Force Base. The nation watched, collectively holding its breath, as the shuttle glided home, proof that the dream of a space truck was no longer just a doodle on a napkin. Deploying Hubble, STS-31, 1990. The shuttle Discovery lifted the Hubble Space Telescope into orbit, giving humanity its first crystal-clear view of the cosmos. Hubble's initial blur, thanks to a tiny mirror flaw, led to a dramatic rescue mission, STS-61 in 1993, where astronauts performed daring spacewalks to install corrective optics. The image of astronauts floating outside the shuttle, wielding tools like cosmic handymen, became an instant icon. Challenger disaster, STS-51L, 1986. On a chilly January morning, Challenger lifted off with a crew that included the first teacher in space, Krista McAuliffe. 73 seconds after launch, a faulty O-ring in the right solid rocket booster failed, causing a catastrophic breach. The shuttle broke apart, and all 7 crew members perished. The tragedy shocked the world, grounded the fleet for nearly 3 years, and led to sweeping safety overhauls. It reminded everyone that space travel, despite its routine veneer, is still a high-risk endeavor. Columbia disaster, STS-107, 2003. After a successful 16-day mission conducting scientific experiments, Columbia re-entered the atmosphere on February 1, 2003. A piece of foam insulation that had struck the left wing during launch damaged the thermal protection system. Upon re-entry, superheated plasma penetrated the wing, causing structural failure. The shuttle disintegrated over Texas and Louisiana, claiming another 7 lives. The loss prompted a thorough reassessment of the shuttle program and ultimately contributed to the decision to retire the fleet. Return to flight. STS-114, 2005. After the Columbia accident, NASA implemented extensive changes, improved inspection techniques, new repair kits, and a stricter launch commit criteria. Discovery's STS-114 mission marked the shuttle's return to flight, demonstrating that the agency could learn from its mistakes, though not without a few tense moments when a loose gap filler prompted an impromptu spacewalk to shave it down. Final flight. STS-135, 2011. Atlantis lifted off on July 8, 2011, carrying a payload of supplies and experiments to the International Space Station. It landed on July 21st, marking the end of the 30-year shuttle era. The final landing was bittersweet. Crowds cheered, engineers wiped away tears, and a generation of kids who grew up watching shuttle launches stared up at the sky wondering what comes next. During STS-95 in 1998, Senator John Glenn, yes, the first American to orbit Earth, returned to space at age 77. When asked how it felt to be the oldest person in space, he reportedly quipped, "I feel like a kid again, except my knees are louder than the engines." Legacy and lessons. What the shuttle taught us. The Space Shuttle program was a bold experiment in reusability, and its legacy is a mixed bag of triumphs, lessons, and what-ifs. Reusability, the promise and the reality. The shuttle proved that a spacecraft could be flown multiple times, but the turnaround time and cost fell short of the original vision. Each flight required months of inspection, tile replacement, and refurbishment, far from the airline-like schedule NASA had hoped for. Still, the concept paved the way for modern reusable launch systems like SpaceX's Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, which now land their boosters autonomously on drone ships or landing pads. International cooperation. Shuttle missions were instrumental in building the International Space Station. They delivered modules, supplies, and crews, turning the ISS into a truly multinational laboratory. The spirit of cooperation forged during those flights continues to define human spaceflight today. Inspiration and education. From classroom TV sets to backyard rocket clubs, the shuttle inspired countless students to pursue STEM careers. Its iconic silhouette, white wings, black belly, orange tank, became a symbol of human ingenuity. Even today, kids doodle shuttle sketches in their notebooks, dreaming of one day floating among the stars. Safety culture. The Challenger and Columbia accidents forced NASA to confront uncomfortable truths about schedule pressure, communication breakdowns, and the normalization of deviance. The resulting reforms, more rigorous testing, independent safety oversight, and a culture that encourages speaking up, have made subsequent programs safer. Technological spin-offs. Shuttle research gave us advances in materials science, those heat-resistant tiles, improved telemedicine, water purification systems, and even better athletic shoes. Yes, the foam used in the shuttle's external tank found its way into cushioning for running shoes. Thanks for riding along on this tour of the Space Shuttle's glorious, tumultuous, and occasionally goofy history. If you learned something new, hit the like button, ring the notification bell so you never miss a future What Is Deep Dive, and drop a comment below with your favorite shuttle memory, or the most bizarre space-themed snack you've ever tried. And remember, whether you're dreaming of orbit or just trying to find the remote, keep looking up, because the universe is always waiting for the next curious mind to explore it. Now for that bonus fact we promised. Bonus fact. Before we wrap up, here's a nugget that didn't make it into the main story. The Space Shuttle's main engines were so efficient that during a single launch, they consumed enough liquid hydrogen to fill about 13,000 2-liter soda bottles, and enough liquid oxygen to fill roughly 26,000 of those same bottles. In other words, if you bottled all the propellant used for one shuttle launch, you could fill a small swimming pool. Twice. And yet, despite all that cryogenic fuel, the shuttle's crew still managed to enjoy a freeze-dried ice cream treat. Proof that even in the realm of rocket science, dessert is never truly out of reach. See you next time.